Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about the entire toy line for the 1980-1981 Clash of the Titans by Mattel. This toy line is very, very small. There's not much to it. It was very cheaply made back in the day, but it has an impact on modern pop culture. What a wonderful movie. We're going to talk about the movie just a little bit. We're going to talk about every single toy in the toy line, and even though I don't really have a Kraken, we're going to talk about a Kraken. Coming up. So I really loved the movie back in the day. I used to watch it all of the time. And the thing about this Clash of the Titans was a movie that had mythology in it. It had a whole lot of stuff going on at the time. It really made you stop and think about the world and the future. Of course, as a kid watching it, it's one of those movies that you can watch it as a kid. There's some adult themes going on in it, but at the same time, there's enough action to keep your attention, and there's not enough suspense in there. It really was a very mature movie for 1980, but it also was friendly and it had some comic relief and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a well-rounded movie. It's still a good watch today, even though some of the effects, you watch them and you go, well, those are super outdated. They were cutting edge back then and really exciting back in the day. So anyway, I love the show, I love the movie, and we're going to get on to the toy line. So we'll start out talking about Perseus, but I do want to do a size comparison for these figures so you can kind of see how big they are. And they're 3.75-inch figure, kind of right in the range of figures such as G.I. Joe. And oddly enough, I never really realized how small Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are because they're so wide. But yeah, they're not much bigger than the 3.75-inch line. So Perseus is the main character in the movie, and he's also part god, I believe. It's been a long time since I watched the movie, and I should have watched the whole thing before going into this. I just didn't have time, but it is a pretty good figure, very good likeness going on right there. So out of all of the head sculpts, this is probably the best, and he does have like this little strap to nowhere, and he drops his sword. Now those swords fall off easy like that. That's why they're hard to find, hard to capture. Nice little strap going on right there. 5 points of articulation: the head, the arms, and the legs articulate just like Star Wars back in the day. They were trying to make this toy line as cheap as they possibly could. The shields are all the same as all the ones I have are exactly the same. So I guess they didn't do them different for different figures. But as you can see, it clips onto two parts on his arm and hangs on there. You know what? I haven't seen a shield that's broken that doesn't actually have those broken off. They're all intact on all of mine. So with this figure does look really good. He does have some paint to it, minimal paint, and some minimal paint wear on mine. So the sword does not look like the show. And you're going to see this sword with the rest of them, so we just get that out of the way right now. It doesn't look like the show. I did see, like, someone on eBay sells 3D print, I think, of some creation they made to look just like the show. So I think that's really cool. Makers making really cool stuff out there. One day I might give it a shot. That sounds pretty cool. But I do want to say that tracking down originals is a challenge, and it's, I guess you could say it's fun. Maybe it's not, but it is definitely a challenge. So what else I want to say about this figure? There's not much to say other than the fact that we'll see him again when we look at Pegasus. Next up, we have Fallow. I think Fallow is kind of like a troop builder figure, and so with that, he looks pretty cool. He's kind of like a standard trooper, but I'm sure he's just the one character in there. But you know, when he did go to take on Medusa, he had two soldiers with him, and I could just see building an army, a troop of these. It would be kind of fun. Really, because there's only 4 figures in the toy line, this guy should be a troop builder. Now, he does have the same shield as we saw with Perseus, and then he has the same boring sword that doesn't really match the show. And one thing, now that we're on to a different character, these should have been back metalized. If you really watch the movie, they are very, very shiny and reflective, and in order to see Medusa, I don't want to give it away, but it's reflective. Don't give away a movie from 1980. He does have this kind of feathery type of thing going on his helmet. That's pretty cool. And some good paint, some paint apps, just minimum, cheap type of figure overall. And I do kind of like he's got some design going on right here with the white. Now, why would I say this guy's a troop builder? He is a little harder to find complete. Well, they're all kind of hard to find complete. But I do want to say that it would look really good if you had several of them. All right, so here we go with a nice little army of them, and some of mine are in rough shape here. They're not the greatest ones, but to have like a nice little army, just to get some cheap ones out there and just kind of outfit them as best you can and make it look like you have an army, I think this would work, especially for a toy line like this that has so few figures. Next up, we have Calibus, which I believe Calibus was an attractive looking dude before he was turned into this monster, and of course he blames Perseus. That's how I remember it going. It's just been so long. But again, doing this review is going to make me crave watching that movie if I can work time in. But looking at this, I always thought he had some weird looking eyes, crazy looking eyes on him. He's got some white horns painted. He has an earring and all that kind of stuff. And then he's kind of some crazy looking teeth to make him look, I don't know, crazy looking weird. He does have the toga. He is going to show up to the same toga party that Perseus is going to, just so you know. I believe I glued his tail back on, so tails fall off real easy, and I actually don't remember. I have another tail for another one of these I've got to figure out how to get back on there. Oddly enough, I never have a tail that goes to the same figure. I don't understand how I ended up with a strange tail. And anyway, they don't stand very well, so they're all falling down back behind me. That sucks. Okay, he has the kind of a gold belt, and weird paint, like the whole boot's painted, not just the straps, and then no hoof paint. And so it's interesting that I do like his tail because it kind of helps him stand better. He stands better than all of them. Sharon or whatever stands pretty good too. But I want to address the accessory. Now they're trying to be cheap and just threw this sword in with him, which is really cool because they all have the same exact weapon, so you can track them all down for the rest of them. Maybe you get him complete and you give this sword to maybe one of the guards or something, and then you bring in this whip and say, okay, he should have a whip. And everyone says he should have a whip, right? I've watched a couple of reviews and they all say about the same things. So Dragon Rider's the sticks. This blue guy, I don't even know what his name is. He's a Dragon Rider. I think he's a bad guy. He actually, and he's about the same height. Maybe he's actually a little taller. But he comes with a whip. So if you track him down or his whip down, that would work really well. Or just find basically any whip that exists for a toy that's around this size that fits in his hand, that would work also, and be great for display. So this is Sharon the boatman. You're the boatman. You stay with the boat. And I can't help it but look at this guy and think, oh wow, they knocked off the Emperor. But it's actually the opposite direction. But we'll take a quick look here at him next to the Star Wars Emperor. Now this came out in like 83. So 2 years after this guy, technically 3, but 2 years after this guy here, and they look so similar. There's so many similarities because you're just an old dude in a robe, but I take it this guy's way older than the Emperor. So anyhow, he is just a robed guy with kind of a skeleton face, and he's one of the harder ones to get in this toy line simply because I think less kids wanted the boatman out of all of the characters they could have made. In fact, they could have made probably a good 12 characters, like at least, something along the lines, at least as many as they did with Indiana Jones, but they only made 4, and he's just got one giant unileg. And I do want to point out, with the rest of them, he doesn't have foot pegs. None of them have foot pegs. So that's another cheap out that they did. And he has just so 1, 2, 3 points of articulation. There's the back of him, and the back versus the Emperor. So I just wonder how much of this was inspired. The Emperor was inspired from him. The Emperor's robe goes straight down, and then this kind of looks like he's wearing a belt, kind of holds it on there. So he does come with the same weapon as all of the rest of them, and it doesn't make any sense. We know, it doesn't make any sense. Now, what's my suggestion for a weapon if you want your scene to look a little bit better? Well, Super 7 Ultimate's Chitara has a nice big staff like this, and this would work for him because he would be able to look like he is making the boat go along with his stick like he would in the movie. So that really works well, I think. So it's supposed to be really, really long. It's not supposed to be a short stick. It's supposed to be a long stick so he can push it into the water. You could display it like that if you wanted to. This is Sharon. It's kind of a boring figure, but spice it up a little bit, I guess. Next up, we have the Pegasus, which is an absolutely beautiful figure. And somebody said that it is actually... Mattel reused this for the unicorn for the flying unicorn that they did is She-Ra, and I actually forgot the name of that horse thing. I don't have that, and I actually considered picking one up just to have She-Ra in that and in my Eternia display, but I don't really collect the dolls from back then, and I figured they'd make a modern one. But anyway, long story short, I was told, or I heard, that this is the exact same thing that they used, which, if so, that's really cool. I don't mind mold reuse, but it's really just a statue. This as a kid, you are really disappointed to get something like this because there's no articulation. Although it's beautifully sculpted. It looks really nice, and it does have rubbery wings that can flap around. You can fit a figure on there, and he just stays on really nice. He stays on real well, and that's I don't know if that figure's in better shape than the one I was showing over there, but here's the other side of them. Now, I got mine real cheap. So mine's in rough shape, and I got some yellowing on it and stuff like that, and I should probably try to whiten it a little bit more than I have. But I got it for 20 bucks, missing a wing. Found the wing, took me like 2 months of just waiting for one to pop up, and I found one for like $30. So 50 bucks for this thing, which I think is kind of a steal because nowadays people want over 100, so that's not too bad in the long run. I think it's really cool. I would actually love to see this small line made in a modern era with a modern one of these. It would be so cool. And I don't really think this truly scales with the toy line well. If they made a bigger one, I think it would scale with the toy line a lot more. But I don't know who'd make it or who'd even care about Clash of the Titans. Well, they did remake the movie. We didn't get all this stuff from the movie. So last thing we're going to talk about before we talk about unreleased items, we're going to talk about the Kraken. Summon the Kraken or enter the Kraken. The Kraken is ginormous. It's supposed to be 15 inches tall. Now, I knew I was not going to drop 400 bucks on a Kraken. Well, now it's more than that, but I've seen them, years ago. I've seen this around for decades. I've seen them for 200, thought that's way too much money for this thing. Then one of the local shops had it for 400, and I said, that's still too much. That's way too much now. And then now it's just gone through the roof. And then getting it complete, it's just insane. Get it with a box, it's just insane. It is really cool, but I don't have room on my shelf for it. And I actually thought when I made this that I was making it 11 inches because I have 11 inches on my shelf. This is 14 and a half. This is almost the exact size of the Kraken. And it's just this is like a little homemade job I did there just to have a picture in my display, or just in my room there. So what all does this guy do? I'm going to show a picture of the real one, and the thing about it is that it has 4 articulated arms, and then it has 2 fins down below that actually clip in, like they call them the legs, but they're kind of like fins, and then it has a giant tail. So with that, that's kind of all it does. I think the head moves too, and all it really does is be a big giant monster. A lot of people put this on the same scale as Inhumanoids monsters and all that kind of stuff, but kind of a fun toy. Maybe one day I'll pick one up, but I actually don't have room on my display for it. I don't even have room on the display for this thing, which I thought I did when I made it. But anyhow, let's go ahead and look at unreleased stuff. All right, so there are three unreleased items. There was a playset that was kind of a cardboard playset, kind of like the Pal Toy Death Star, except more simplified. And I think someone made a reproduction of that, or somehow made one, which for production that's more professional than I guess something I would make. But it looks pretty cool. It is a cool looking thing. There's also role play items, which I think I'm surprised they didn't make that and just put that out, because kids would have loved it. I mean, even if the movie was a year or two old, that kids would love to shield a sword and a helmet. I mean, that's just basic stuff in the 80s. Kids would have loved, and it would have been so cool and iconic for them to be floating around this day and age, and Mattel would have made money at it. So I don't know why they didn't do that. Now, the other unreleased item is, what do they call that little owl? Boo Boo or something? Bobu or something. So it's like a golden mechanical owl, and this doesn't scale with the toy line. It's actually more of a role play accessory for the kids, sort of a full size, life size for kid. So it's not life size for adult, life size for kid. And it's supposed to do some animated stuff there. It seemed like it'd be a cool little toy too, but truthfully, that would not have sold very well. That would be like clogging up shelves like a poorer version of Grogu. But really cool stuff they had planned, and I heard there was supposed to be more figures. They should have put out more figures. They should have done more with this, and it probably would have caught on. All right, so here's my look at the 1981 Clash of the Titans toy line from Mattel. Very small, 4 figures, Pegasus and a Kraken. I gotta say that it is very rewarding and satisfying. If you enjoyed the movie, you remember the movie, and you like it, and dedicate a small fraction of a shelf, which would I do, to your collection. So it would be fun and satisfying enjoying to set this up. I hope you enjoyed my weapon options. If you want to use those ideas, steal those ideas, feel free to do that. Getting the figures is relatively simple. Getting them complete's a little bit more challenging. Getting the Pegasus is more challenging, and of course the Kraken is the ultimate piece to try to track down in this. But fun toy line. Wish they would have done more, and I think that it's just a small piece of history that we're gonna have forever. It's gonna be around forever because the toys are here. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you collect this? Did you have any of these as a kid? And do you have these today? Like, subscribe to your hanger out.
Look on this. In wounding me, he has insulted you.
Perseus is protected by Zeus himself. There is nothing I can do.
Yes, a young man, not plump, but well made.
Have no fear. I come in peace.